Welcome, everyone. I hope you can see me. My name is Jennifer Bauldic. We're going to get started in just a moment. Today's webcast, Intuit Business Builder series, how to choose the price for your product or service. Look at this, Halifax, Thunder Bay, Oshawa, Bancroft, Vancouver. Holy smokes, this is awesome. Everywhere. It looks like we got the whole country covered. And that's why I'm in the middle of it, because then I feel like I don't have too many time zones to traverse. So let's get started. My name is Jennifer Bauldic. Sometimes I go by Jennifer P. Bauldic. I am a certified Profit First professional and a certified professional bookkeeper. Today's session is being recorded. And what else did I want to tell you for housekeeping? We are not taking a break. We're going to go solid until the bottom of the hour. So 1:30 here, 1:30 Eastern, no, 1:30 Central Time, 2:30 Eastern. We are going to be sending you, or Intuit will be sending you your CPD, your continuing professional development credits, and any supporting documentation is going to come out to you via email within the next week. So you can watch your inbox for that. For the chat, everyone has demonstrated that they know how to use it. That is awesome. So please go ahead and continue to use the chat for kind of general conversation amongst yourselves. Unfortunately, I won't be able to monitor the chat because although I have two eyes, I only have one brain. If you do have specific questions about today's content that you would like answered, please post it in the Q&A panel. And I will try to pause at the end of each section. I do have the lovely Jessica Toro here with me from Intuit to kind of help keep me on track and to help me manage the questions as they come up. And then I will try to set aside about 10 minutes at the end of our session, so 10 minutes before we're done, where I can open it up and answer any questions about any of today's content. So that's how we are going to proceed. So happy to have all of you joining us today. It looks like the front doors are slowing down, so this might be a great time to kick off and start our webinar today. Are we all ready? Let's begin. How much does it cost? Do you cringe when you hear this phrase? Does it sound like nails on a chalkboard to you? Because it's a question that we all get asked, and many of us are really, really uncomfortable when this bold question, how much does it cost? What's the price? What are you going to charge me? Right? Well, guess what? Today's good news is we're going to take a much milder approach. Our topic today for today's webinar is going to be how to come up with a price for your product or service. Okay? I'm going to break it down into 4 sections for us. We're going to talk about what's in a price. Then we're going to move into how to choose your customers, because that is a key component to being able to come up with the right price or the best price. And then we're going to talk about your value story, and that's really your description. I'll share some examples, and we'll talk in a little bit more detail about how you can create and update your value story, because it will evolve over time. Okay. And then last but not least, we're going to pull it all together and talk about how to price your value. And not showing on there is going to be our Q&A component, so that we can ask and answer some questions before I leave you until the next time. So what's in a price? Well, if you're like me and many people that I know, trying to come up with a price can be really complex. It seems to be there's a whole bunch of mysterious numbers, maybe some fractions and percentages, and maybe a little bit of magic and fingers crossed and wishful thinking. Well, it doesn't have to be that frightening. We can take control over our prices, right? And so the question I always ask, and I asked myself when I started my own business many years ago, was how do I figure out how much to charge, right? Where am I going to go to figure out, to determine how to calculate my price? Well, we're going to go to Google, aren't we? Don't we all go to Google the very second we have a question, or we ask our electronic friend in the corner to tell us stuff? And so I Googled the topic of our webinar today, how to come up with a price for your product and service. And I think this is 1.6 billion results in less than a second. Holy smokes, information overload, right? So let's break it down. So we Googled it. We're going to hope that there's some sort of good information in here. We know that we're not going to check all of these articles and information pieces, but what is the top thing that Google is telling us about coming up with a price? Well, it's given us step number 2. Don't know what happened to step number 1, but step number 2 is to calculate the cost of goods or sold, or your cost of sales. And then it's broken down for us the 3 steps on how to come up or to calculate your cost of goods sold or your cost of sales, right? Raw materials, labor, amortization, overhead. And then step number 3, your gross profit is your total revenue minus your cost of goods sold. I don't see anything about price in that section, okay? So the very first component that I'm seeing from Google, not helpful. What if we scroll down a little bit? Ooh, this looks promising. How do you price a product or service? One of the most simple ways, how about one of the simplest ways to price your product is called cost plus pricing. Okay, this sounds like it might be a little bit more helpful. We've got a calculation here. We've got materials, labor, overhead, and total cost of $38. Doesn't tell us how much to price though, does it? It does talk about a percentage markup to determine the final price. But if anybody in the audience has ever tried to use a method such as this, you have hopefully learned the right way versus the hard way, the difference between markup and margin. And I'll give you a quick little example. If you've got, like, let's say we total this up and our total costs are $100 on our product, and we give it a percentage markup of 30% because we're told that that is the industry standard. So we think that we're making 30% on all of our sales. But strangely, when we get our first profit and loss for the first quarter, our profit margin's only showing 23%. Isn't that strange? Well, it's not when you know the difference between a percentage markup and a profit margin. So in using that same cost of $100, marked up 30% gives you a sell price of $130, right? That seems so simple, but here's where it gets complicated. The profit margin, if you put a profit margin of 30% on that $100 item, you are going to come up with a sell price of $142.85, right? So that is going to be very different, especially over the course of many, many sales, right? If you sell 1,000 at that different amount, you're looking at almost $13,000. The same way, if you are selling a service and you think, okay, well, my hard costs on that, I want to pay myself this much salary, I'm going to put a 30% markup on it. It's going to be a very different result than if you put a 30% margin on it. So we'll get into those kind of scientific complexities at the end when we pull it all together, but I just wanted to go to Google, because Google's where everybody goes first, to see what kind of information it's going to provide to us, right? The third section, when I've Googled how to come up with a price for my product or service, is a short list of things that I need to consider. That's helpful. What are the things that I need to consider? So I'm going to address this by just recognizing what we have on screen: the manufacturing cost, the price in the market, the cost of risk. So if you're a service-based business, it could be the salary that you want versus the manufacturing cost, the price in the market, what are your competitors charging for their professional services, legal, accounting, consulting, interior design, whatever the case might be, the cost of those risks. But I'd ask you to consider Apple, because Apple is one of the most common companies referred to when you are discussing price. And when we think, if we think in terms of Apple, and we think in terms of that number 2 about the market and the competitors selling the same product, I'd have to challenge you to ask yourself, does Apple think about what other people are charging? I'm going to guess maybe only as a floor, because they're going to charge more, right? If we even think about the operating system, there's the Apple operating system that exclusively runs Apple products, and then there's Android, that's everybody else. So you can see Apple has done a great job of presenting their value and having a price tag that's associated with it, right? So that is a really good distinguisher. Are we going to be that specific or that powerful? Probably not, but in our own industry, in our own area, we can be just as influential. So where are you going to start? Right? I picked this graphic here because it's a highway. It's a beautiful highway. It looks very scenic. There's probably some turnouts and some touristy spots where you can stop. Nice sky. It looks like some blue skies ahead. But the start is right in the middle of the highway. We are not starting with your driveway. We're not starting with your office. We're not starting with your home. We're not starting from your kitchen table. We are just starting. And when you're talking about pricing, you start with today. The past is the past, and we can draw from it and we can learn from it. But when we're going to start our pricing journey, our value pricing journey, or pricing for value, we just start with today, right? We're going to collect all of our business costs, and we'll make a list a little bit later on in today's session. But I'm going to make that small assumption that before you've come to today's webinar, you've got a bit of an understanding as to what your costs are in order to run your business. And if you haven't, that's totally fine. You can take that listing and create it after our session today. What we're going to focus on in the next two sessions, our sections, is we're going to choose your customer and we're going to create your value story. And why do we do that? Because pricing is a long and winding road, and there's a whole lot of distractions along the way, and there's going to be a whole lot of naysayers that are going to criticize your price or criticize your value or reject your product or your service. And you are going to be resilient because you know the value and you know who your customer is. And that person that's complaining about your price is not your customer, right? So let's talk a little bit about the art of pricing. So the art of pricing is creating the value, creating the description, creating the picture that is the price that matches your product or service. And you must be confident in sharing your value. If I said to you, well, absolutely, I can help you with designing a pricing package for your company, and it's going to cost you $100,000. You might say that you are not my customer because that price, although maybe you see my value, is not going to be a price that you would like to part with or pay, right? So being confident is going to be important. If by the same token, you approach me and say, hey, can you help me set up a pricing calculation? And I'm like, yeah, I can absolutely help you with that. You know, it might take me an hour, hour and a half, and I usually charge, you know, $300 an hour, but maybe I could, you know, cut that down a little bit. That's not very confident, right? That's going to erode from your impression of my ability to help you solve that problem from a service perspective, or that my product that I'm trying to sell you is going to be the right product for you, right? So being confident in sharing your story is going to be important. And we're going to talk about how we can practice that a little bit later on as well. Now, pricing for profit, in my mind, that's always the number one thing, but in reality, you do need to be confident first, and you must price for profit, and you must protect that profit at all costs. So many business owners, and I was guilty of this as well at one time, the very first thing that you sacrifice when you're running your business is your profit. And that kind of defeats the purpose of being in business, right? So you must always account for your profit. You must always have a profit, because if you don't, you have a hobby. And I'm not independently wealthy. I must run my business for a profit. And I like to think that most of us on today's call are in that same boat, that yes, we are expecting to run our businesses for a profit. We also need to become comfortable and practiced and experienced in engaging in these pricing conversations, because there will be people that are your customer, but maybe they're going to challenge you on price just a little bit. Maybe they're going to challenge you on your value, and you need to be able to answer their questions, give them feedback, make descriptions, and do this smoothly and comfortably and confidently, right? And then that takes us into choosing your customers, because not everybody is going to be your customer. And you cannot make someone your customer if they are not going to fit within your value mold. What will end up happening is you are going to have a dissatisfied customer who will then complain and possibly give you a bad review on our favorite Google, and that's going to work against what you are after in building and growing your business. So transitioning clients and price evolution. The transitioning clients, guess what, is the easiest part. Once you have built your pricing for value model, it is absolutely easy to revisit your existing customers, especially if you're in a service-based business, and expressing to them what is going to be new and how the new value is going to be an option for them to choose, because they're still going to have the power to choose, right? And then, of course, we must evolve our price, because prices must go up, as with everything, and your price must increase at the end of each year or at the beginning of each year. So how much does it cost might be what people are shouting to you, but really what they're shouting to you is, what is the value to me? What is the value of the product or services that you are offering to me? So we must learn to recognize value. So creating value begins with recognizing value. And most of us are pretty savvy that we feel that we can recognize value when we see it, right? And so what that means is that when we look at this building complex, I will call it, out on the water, looks a little bit futuristic. We can see there's some more traditional looking buildings in the background that kind of more meet what we would expect to see in a city. We can look at this and think, well, if that's an office tower, I'll bet you that's going to be really, really expensive, and it's going to have all the finest furnishings and interiors and fixtures that one could possibly imagine, right? Not a big stretch to imagine that this is going to be a very high-priced office tower. Or if these were condominiums, perhaps each floor is a condominium, an address all of its own. Again, you're going to imagine that this is going to be very expensive, very exclusive. They are literally on the water. So we can look at this and recognize in an instant that that is valuable. Now, we've recognized that it's valuable. That doesn't mean that we are a customer for that particular condominium unit or that office space. We can recognize value and say, that's out of my price range, so I am not that customer, right? Now, here's a really vivid example of the difference between a price and a value. So if you are in the market to leasing office space or retail space, and you talk to this new business owner and you say, I've got this great location for you. It's on a fabulous street, and I think that your business will do very, very well. And the price of it is X, $1,000 a month. Your client is seeing the value of, ooh, must be a pretty rundown street with potholes and not anywhere that I would like to operate my business. It will not attract the kind of clientele that I would like to have in my business. But if your value, if your descriptor of your product or service offering is colorful and three-dimensional and specific and detailed, then that same business owner is going to say, wow, where do I sign up? Can I get a 10-year lease on that? Right? Very big difference. Here's a price and an address. Here is the actual product or service that I'm offering to you. There's trees, there's walk spaces, there's already a number of retail businesses that are thriving. So here's a very gray and white, I guess it will be, a black and white description of what your client might see, even though what you're trying to present to them is much more colorful and robust. And that brings me into choosing your customer. And so when you choose your customer, you're going to choose a customer that values the product or service that you're offering. It doesn't mean that they have to have the same values. They don't need to like dogs versus cats or vice versa, but they need to value the product or service that you are offering. If you are offering a furniture assembly service to a particular person, perhaps your clientele might be in an assisted living facility, because those people that live in an assisted living facility might need your furniture assembly help. Now, conversely, if you're going to go into a neighborhood that is full of people in the construction and contracting industry, they're probably not going to want your furniture assembly service because they can do it themselves, faster, cheaper, easier. So choosing your customer is going to be very, very important. And I'll go back to our friends at Apple for one quick example. And when they launched those white earbuds, I think everybody's had them. I still have a pair right here. When they launched those back in 2011, you became a walking advertisement for Apple. And what that said was, I have chosen these more expensive earbuds so that I could recognize other Apple people in the street. So I knew people that were like me. It made me feel like I was in an exclusive club. And that was the power of Apple and their marketing, right? White denotes coolness and style. White is classy. It looks good without being too ostentatious. They weren't gold. They weren't silver, right? They weren't matted in jewelry or gems, but they were white, they were bold, and they made a statement. And they sold like crazy because Apple knew who their customer was, right? So let's go for an example here. And I've chosen an example of, do you have a horse for sale? So this comes from the fact that I have two sisters and each of them have horses, very different horses, I might tell you. And so this is going to be another way just to describe to you how choosing your customer is really, really important. So let's imagine that I've posted this on Kijiji or eBay or wherever that says, I have a horse for sale for $75,000. Who's going to be my buyer? That is going to be a great question. So perhaps a friend calls me up and says, oh, I've got a friend. He's looking for a horse. I'm going to send him over to you. So what kind of horse do I have? Well, the buyer of the horse on the left here, this race horse, is a very different horse than this dressage horse on the right. Now, from a basic description, they're both bay horses, which is a coloring. They're brown bodies with black mane and tail. So on the surface, they could appear to be very, very similar, but they're not. And even if you don't know anything about horses, you can tell that, look at the way this rider is dressed. Look at the way this rider is sitting on the horse. Look at the teeny tiny saddle on this horse, right? Even the mechanism in the horse's mouth, which is how you drive the horse, very, very different, very simple bit, because the racehorse wants to run fast. You look at the dressage horse, very conservative approach, very polished, very formal looking, 2 sets of reins on this horse. So clearly control is going to be very important, but not only controlling the head, this person is also wearing spurs to push this horse on and to give it more clues. So if you've got a horse for sale, it's going to matter which horse you have to determine which customer you need, right? You cannot serve everybody. You cannot have 20 different kinds of horses to try to fit your customer approach. That would be ridiculous. The cost of keeping horses would be ridiculous. And I use this as a good amplifier to whatever is going on in your business. If you try to be everything to everybody, you're going to be very, very skinny on all the things or on the things that you can deliver to any particular customer. That is not going to be your specialty. You will not gain a reputation of someone that is good for this, right? So choosing your customers almost guarantees that they're going to see the value in your price and in your product or service offering. Okay, choose your customer. If we pick the wrong customer, we're gonna have a 100% chance of disappointment. If I try to sell a racehorse to a dressage rider, not gonna go well, and same with the reverse. If I try to sell a dressage horse to someone that wants to race that horse, take it to the track, it's going to be very, very disappointing. So when expectations are out of alignment, you're gonna have 100% chance of dissatisfaction. So let's avoid all of that. And let's instead plan for 100% satisfaction. Even if we don't achieve 100% satisfaction, choosing that as our goal is going to make sure that we are going to take ourselves into the right place. So let's talk about our value story. The value story is more than just the price. So we talked about that. I can sell you a horse for $75,000. What kind of horse? Maybe I want a $700 horse or a $750 horse. I might think that's a great horse, not valuable to me because that is not my skill level as a rider, right? I can sell you this top level dressage horse that's won X number of titles and championships, how many years running. This horse is 16 too high. It's a Dutch warm blood. It's quiet around the barn, really safe and easy to handle. Those are the specifics of that horse that will help me choose the customer that's going to be the best customer for that horse. Or if it's the racehorse, maybe I've got this 3-year-old racehorse that has won its first 4 races, comes from Kentucky Derby, winning stock, on and on and on. So the value story becomes the description of the product or service that you are selling. And the description is how you choose your customer. Because when you choose your customer and expectations and price and service are in alignment, you suddenly got a loyal customer and you probably have some really great testimonials. We'll get to that in just a minute. So here's a favorite phrase that I'm pretty confident everybody has heard, right? The customer is always right. This was coined or attributed to Harry Gordon Selfridge back in 1909. So the customer is always right was pioneered by Harry, another fellow named John Wanamaker, and another fellow named Marshall Field. These men were really successful retailers, and these men learned early on in their careers that the success of their stores was specifically related to the happiness of their customers. So Selfridge, who, no surprise, founded the department store Selfridges in the UK, Wanamaker opened the first department store in Philadelphia, and Marshall Field owner of the Marshall Field and Company store in Chicago. They owe much of their success in their careers to respecting their customers. So it's unclear as to who really coined the phrase. It's always been attributed to Harry Selfridge, but it wasn't the idea that the customer was always right in every situation. Instead, what this phrase meant was that it was a signal that the customers were special. Say that again, the customers were special. The staff were instructed to treat customers as if they were always right, even if they were not. So this change in mindset was very radical at the time, and it was a shift as to how customers were used to being treated. So they were mistreated typically in department stores. Harry Selfridge and his two colleagues decided that no, the customer is always right, and people wanted to shop there. It's nice to be treated nicely. That's where we all want to go, right? You don't go into the butcher shop if the guy's going to yell at you. You'll go to a different butcher shop. Pretty simple. So the customer is always right. I know nowadays, oh, the customer's not always right, but you know what? The customer is always right if it's your customer. If it's not your customer, it doesn't matter what they think because they're not your customer. They're not right because you haven't chosen them. So let's talk a little bit more about value. So value are those tasty morsels, that amuse-bouche when you go into a fancy restaurant, the appetizers that come before the meal. They really pique your appetite and build that anticipation of what's going to come, right? It sets the tone. If you refer to your own product or service documentation, do you have an appetizer in there? Is there a little amuse-bouche that someone says, oh, that's interesting. I want to click here, or I want to ask you more questions, or I want to phone you, or I want to book an appointment or a meeting, or I want to order that product or click the description to learn more, right? So how is your value going to be perceived by your customer? And that is where we get into your value story, okay? What is your value story? All about communication. That is the world that we live in. Communicating is the number one way information gets passed. Now you can communicate verbally, electronically, webinars, paper, mail, TV, all kinds of different ways. So when you're thinking about your value, first things first, who are you trying to attract? Who is your ideal customer? What characteristics are in that client avatar, right? These are all those things that you've probably heard, and I'm going to try to package them just a little bit differently today to help you make a few changes into your value story so that you can make some adjustments either into your pricing so that there's a better match of value and price, or to increase your value so that your customers see the value in your existing price, or that you can recognize your customers when they come in the door, show up in your email, or go to your online store, whatever the case might be. So value are those little things that set you apart and make you uniquely interesting and desirable to your specific customer. Imagine calling up a caterer and saying, you know, I need lunch for 42 people on Saturday afternoon. And Saturday afternoon comes and this super formal, fancy lunch comes with little petit fours and specific and expensive. Maybe there's some caviar in there, white glove service, and the whole 9 yards. And you're scratching your head going, it's a kid's party. I just needed some hot dogs and hamburgers. That's a mismatch, right? So the value story needs to be there. When I clicked on catering, I needed to be presented with the fact that this was a white glove catering service and not going to be appropriate for my hot dog and hamburger party for my kids with hopefully cupcakes with sprinkles, right? Because I love cupcakes with sprinkles. So what is your value story? Who are you trying to attract? Who's your customer? What's unique about your offering? How is the service that you deliver different than the 100,000 other people that have that same shingle up? Legal, accounting, professional, interior design, decorating, landscaping. What's unique and different about you? And then what experience do you deliver, right? Because that is also part about what is unique about you. And what your value story is also what it is not. And this is going to be hard to hear for many of you, but generic facts, indistinguishable features are not part of your value story. How long you've been in business, most of the time, 99% of the time is not relevant. Imagine, I'm a psychiatrist. I've been practicing psychiatry for the last 40 years. in the last 10 years, many changes have been made to my industry. We've got new diagnoses on the table. We've got new medicines that are on the table. We've got new ways of treating people with mental issues and challenges that they're trying to overcome. But I've been in the business for 40 years and I'm not interested in that newfangled stuff. So on the one hand, a person might be attracted to, oh, they've been around for 40 years, they must be good. Might not be true. That other psychiatrist that you've also been given the name of may have only been practicing for 5 years. However, they go to every conference, they attend webinars, they update their training, they're involved in testing and evaluating what is new and effective, and they might be the more appropriate psychiatrist for you and the challenges that you are facing. So how long you've been in business? Absolutely can and should be on your website. It is a factor, but it is not part of your value story, right? Comparisons to the competition. Why would you want to be compared to the competition? You are the best you, your product is the best product. And comparing yourself to the competition puts an unnecessary spotlight on your competition. I'm going to share an example about that in, I think, 2 slides, right? So, and then last but not least, awards, certifications, nominations. These are, again, important pieces of information that talk about your reputation, but they're not part of your value story. And I'll take you back, if you think about the very first slide where you saw my name and my picture, I shared my credentials. Certified Profit First Professional, Certified Professional Bookkeeper. And at that moment, I would expect that to the majority of you, that didn't have any impact. That did not increase my value to you in order to deliver a webinar based on price, right? It wasn't relevant. It's not part of my value story. Now, at the end of this, if you get some value out of today's webinar, maybe you might be interested to know more about those credentials and how I've come to have the knowledge that I've had. But as part of the value story, the hors d'oeuvres, the amuse-bouche, the interest in wanting to participate in a webinar with me or to hire your product or buy your product, hire your service, those credentials are not necessarily important. Certifications are valuable, but the value also needs to be measured. You can get a certification for taking a 1-hour training, or you can take a certification that's 1 year of training. So again, not part of your value story, but is part of your reputation and your ongoing credentials, okay? So let's look at a sample value story. Here's a fun one. So I've just made these brief to try to amplify for effect what's going on. So here we have a picture of a lady selling a dress. Our dresses are custom fit to you and delivered right to your door. No need to leave the house. Now this is a value story. Why is it a value story? Well, because this dress seller, dressmaker, as it would be, custom fit, is choosing their customers because they're speaking to someone that likes to wear dresses or likes to buy dresses, someone that might be shy about trying on a dress in a retail store. Maybe their customers don't drive. Maybe they have physical impairments. Maybe they just, maybe they live out of town, and maybe they need a custom size. I think that we've all had the experience where you've gone into a store to try to buy something and you can't find your size. This particular dressmaker is targeting you if you need a dress for a specific purpose. So you can see how this person is buying dresses, but they are narrowing down who their customer is. Not every dress buyer is going to buy a dress from this particular business. Now, on the opposite side of things, here we have a car lot. We have the best cars and will beat any competitor's price. Buy your new car today. So value story? I'm going to say not. The very first thing is I'm going to question why these are the best cars. Who decided these are the best cars? Because I'm looking at them. This is not the brand of car that I drive, so I'm going to say this probably isn't the best car. So that statement, I'm already skeptical. I'm not really buying into the value of this advertisement. Now, we'll beat any competitor's price. So now you're going to put me to work? Now I've got to go to other car dealerships, find out what they're charging for a car, and then come back to you and try to negotiate a better price? Nah, I think that I will take the advice, buy my new car today, and I'm going to go to your competitors. I'm going to buy a car from them because they're going to value me as a customer. So I tried to demonstrate the contrast between choosing your customer very specifically, to just throwing stuff out there, right? You can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing with an advertisement like this and never convert a customer. You could spend a few $100s on marketing with this type of advertisement where you're choosing your customer and land a whole bunch of valuable customers that see you, love you, enjoy your product or service, are repeat buyers, are referrals, and take you from there, right? So remember, if this is what your client is seeing, when they see your price and your value, one of two things have happened. One, they're not your customer. They don't want to buy the racehorse today. They want a dressage horse. They are not your customer. Or two, you need to improve your value story because your price and your value are not in alignment. Okay, so that is what can happen there. So how do you do that? Well, specifics, right? Think about all the specifics. This is your brainstorm. Get your Post-it notes, get everything out on a wall, put down all the specifics about your customer. The more specific, the better. Because guess what? Once you have found that core group of people, it will grow, it will expand, right? So value is specific. Favorite color, education, type of pet, where they live, where they travel, where they, what size family do they have? There's so many different things. And I always recommend start specific. Whatever your business idea is, hone in on it to its nth degree. And I'll give you an example. Anybody on today's webinar have a pair of Uggs? Does anybody know the story of Uggs? Well, Uggs were boots that were made for surfers in Australia, right? You got out of the water, your feet were cold. These boots kept you warm, dry, and they were super comfortable. And so the maker of Uggs only marketed them to surfers. So surfers in Australia knew all about Uggs. They bought them up like crazy. Somebody bought the licensing, started selling Uggs to surfers in California. And then mainstream got a hold of these things and were like, what? We want in on that. And boom, explosion. And why? Because they were started with a target audience. They focused on the core and then they were able to expand. All right, these are your early adopters. Right? Your value story, when you have it specific, when you are the expert or specialist in your product or your service, you are delivering the highest value at a premium price, and your customers see that value. They don't see it as a premium price. They see it as a good value for their dollar. For them, there's a higher perceived value than the price they are paying you. And that's why they're their loyal customers, right? If you start with trying to please everybody, you please no one. And if you then try to narrow your focus and raise your prices, no one's buying it, right? They're not going to see that value. So instead, start specific, get your premium going, become a specialist, become an expert, and then you've got profits, you've got your war chest, you've got your cash position in place, where now if you want to expand out and try a new area, you can do so and safely, right? So what happens when you start narrow? You get great testimonials. So I swiped these three from Intuit because they were easy to find, right? Saved me so much hassle, the mileage tracker and receipt stuff. Specific compliment in the testimonial. If you're looking for a mileage tracker, you're now going to investigate this product. Here, automatic detection, invoice on the run, 5 stars. Again, a specific compliment, a specific shout out to what they received, right? TurboTax, hours and hours at the end. So just like that, you're going to get these testimonials. And when you have these testimonials, then people that were maybe on the fringe going, oh, that sounds good, but too expensive. When they start reading this and seeing the value that others have seen, they maybe are suddenly thinking that, okay, you know what, maybe that price is worth it. Maybe I do want to buy that product or invest in that service, right? So again, start narrow. You start with this, you gain your testimonials, you get your profits in the bank, you put your money set aside, you make sure that your future is secure, then you can expand out just a little bit, right? So let's talk about some sample value stories. I think I see a couple of questions in, value story, specifics for lawyers. Tips are great, professional service. No, we're going to cover all of that. So I've started, and it's funny, I am in the service industry, so I've tried to put in a few more product examples because to me, they're all the same, okay? So let's walk through this one twice, once as a product and once as a service. So here is my patio furniture set store. So imagine that I have a patio furniture store, and I've started here that I have a designer on site. Maybe I'm a designer, and I just want to work with and design these most beautiful backyard oases for my customers, right? I'm going to assemble everything on site. I'm going to design it for you. I'm going to customize cushions in the shape, the color, the dimension, the quantity that you want. I'm going to do everything for you. And it's going to cost a lot of money, but that is my expertise. That is my specialty. And that is where I'm going to begin. If I'm a lawyer, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to focus on commercial real estate law. That is my area of focus. And I could probably even niche that down to being, certain geographical areas. I'm going to niche that down. I'm going to make it very, very specific. If I'm an accountant or bookkeeper, I might be a bookkeeper with a specialty in restaurants. I could be a bookkeeper with a specialty in retail stores, e-commerce, manufacturing steel items, right? So very, very, very narrow. So we start with our premium price. This is everything that we're going to do. I start out, I get 1, 2, 3 customers a year, maybe 5 customers in the first 6 months. Maybe I'm really successful, but those 5 customers are sufficient with my patio furniture set business that is sustaining me. I'm paying myself a salary. I'm making a profit. This goes on for a little while. I'm feeling very comfortable, very confident. I've got some money set aside, and you know what? I'd like to expand. I'd like to scale a little bit, right? There's our favorite word. I want to scale. So I can't scale anymore. I can't make another me. But what I can do is I can now create a second offering, being now I've got a standard price, which is less than my premium. So you can see there's no more designer in play here. So I've pared down my premium, my specialty, into a standard price. So people can still shop in store or online. I'm going to pay for delivery. There's no extra cost. But now my customers have to assemble the furniture on their own at their home, right? I'm no longer doing that for them. So it's a different price, right? Seat cushions are included, but they're standard. They're no longer custom. So again, different price. Now, if you want to return it, no problem, but you're going to have to pay the shipping to return all that furniture back to me. But I'm still friendly. I will exchange it for you in 30 days. So you can see how I'm still in the same business. I'm still selling patio furniture, but now I have a different value offering that is going to appeal to those people that really want perhaps my premium, my specialty custom service, but they can't afford it. So they're going to be really happy to still get my name branded patio furniture, but at a different price. I can go this way for a little while, have this out here. Hey, this is being really successful, making lots of money. And then, I'm going to go one more step out. I'm going to go for a minimum price. Online only, you got to pay delivery. You got to assemble it yourself. Seat cushions, patio furniture no longer comes with seat selection or seat cushions, not refundable. And if you want to exchange it, it's going to cost you. Now, the one bullet that's not here, that should be here in bold letters, limited selection. Because although people paying the minimum price would like to have the prestige of having a Jennifer P. patio furniture set, I only want them to have a certain line of patio furniture set because I don't want to tick off my specialty custom people over here. They pay a premium for these one-of-a-kind solutions where my minimum price people, they're only going to get the option of one type of selection, right? If we put that into our accounting business, so our premium, our specialty could be an all-in-one where we really act in the best interest of the business owner from start to finish. So from document retrieval to human resources development, to payroll, to tax planning, to tax preparation, to advice is very different than helping someone on a minimum price from a compliance standpoint, taking bank statements at the end of the year and putting together a set of financials and a tax return. So it's level of service, level of contact. If you are, I'll go back to legal services, you might have a standard package of, okay, I'll help you with a will, but you have to do all the work and then I will make it legal. Or for a premium, I'm going to sit down with you. We're going to go through a lengthy conversation, Q&A. I'm going to understand everything about you. I'm going to make sure that we cover all aspects and all potential possibilities to ensure that you have the best legal document, the best will, the best business agreement, shareholder agreement, partnership agreement that you could possibly have. So there's always different levels of service in absolutely every situation. And I will watch the Q&A if someone thinks that there is an industry or a business that they think cannot be split into 3 different levels, because I'm up for that challenge. Okay, so here we go. So now we have 3 different offerings, and guess what? Now we can take over the entire market, because I'm pretty confident that all of us have heard, and if you haven't, you're hearing it here for the first time, there's a rule of 3. If you want to buy a car, go and look at 3 cars. If you want to get your house renovated, go get 3 quotes. You want to buy a horse, go look at 3 horses. If you want to hire a lawyer, talk to 3 lawyers. If you want to hire an accountant, go talk to 3 accountants. There's that rule of 3, right? Everybody has heard the rule of 3. And in this case, we now have 3 pricing packages for our product or service. So now, although when we started our business, we were super excited that we wanted to do the custom one of a kind, we now have 3 offerings that now, when a customer comes to our website, to our front door, to our store, to wherever they've landed and seen our marketing materials, they can compare 3 different prices, 3 different offerings. So why would they go anywhere else? You have no competition. You are offering them 3 pricing value options. And so they can just shop with you. And why wouldn't they? You're a fabulous person. You got a great business. You offer a great service. Your product is unparalleled in the market. So now you've created a 3 package pricing system so that you can expand and grow and scale your business without having to learn new things. Right? You've actually made less things because you've started with your specialty and branched out rather than branching out and then trying to specialize. People don't understand that. Start with premium, start with specialty, and going out that way. I love the challenge. Home cleaning services, 3 levels of service. Okay. You can have clean enough for me and the dog, clean enough for my mother-in-law, or hospital clean. Right? There's 3 different levels of service. You can also differentiate your service on a frequency basis. If you're home cleaning, maybe I'm going to only clean your house once a month. Maybe I'm going to do it every 2 weeks. Maybe I'm going to do it every week. Maybe my premium custom one of a kind is I'm going to move into your house and clean it every single day. And the price on that is 6 figures, right? So there is absolutely different ways that you can offer different value levels of your product or service. Ooh, okay, I'm going to do one more and then we better get on to the next because I see that we're still on time, getting close. Gymnastics program for kids. Again, it can talk, your different programs will be different skill levels. So you're going to choose the different children. Maybe the first kids that you start with are already naturally gifted in gymnastics. Maybe they can already do somersaults and cartwheels or crazy things on the monkey bars. So you're going to start with them, but as you expand out, you might want to have non-competitive level children join your program that are going to be in it for the fun, the enjoyment. They're not going to want to compete, but they're still going to want to learn how to do things. And then you could expand it out to other children that are interested in it, but have 2 left feet. And so they have a different program. You know, perhaps 2 somersaults is the goal for those children versus being able to do a backflip handspring or whatever that's called. I'm not really familiar with gymnastics, but I hope that helps. So let's continue. And I'm going to save the rest of the questions to the end. So how do you go from premium to standard to minimum, right? You must listen. Typically, when you are having a conversation with a potential customer service, you are going to be listening 41% of the time, right? I'm suggesting you expand that after you leave that conversation, think about what they didn't say explicitly. Think about what hidden value that person might enjoy or benefit from, right? We talked about the home furniture assembly. Some people are going to find that super valuable. Some people are not. Some people are going to want free delivery. Other people have a truck, right? Whatever the case might be. Some people like to do things themselves. Other people need automation. And key, easy for you may be highly valuable for your client. And this happens all the time in the service business. And service being professional services, home services, training, teaching. You think, oh, that's super easy. It'll only take me a minute. It might take you, the expert, a minute, but for your customer, that could be hugely valuable, right? Oh, absolutely. I can reconcile your bank accounts. I can run your payroll in 2 minutes. But that's because you've got 400 hours of knowledge, experience, and education, right? Not so easy for your customer, super easy for you, okay? So those are some different ways that you always must listen. So take notes when you're having these conversations and then revisit those conversations when you can focus your whole mind on what's being said in between the lines, okay? So price is the value that your client sees. These are 8 words, live by them. Price is the value that your client sees. So choose the clients that will see the value in your price. So here we are in our last 10 minutes, I think. Pricing value. So here we go. Here's how we're going to put our prices together. So take a screenshot of this. I know that you will get a copy of this slide deck after today's session, but if you can, take a screenshot of this now so that you can get started with it right away. Where are you going to start? Well, we're going to start with the Google of pricing. You're going to start with all of your hard costs, right? You're going to start with your profit. You start with how much, if you're buying a product, you got to resell it. You got to think about that. And your manufacturing, lost or damaged. Your salary is a hard cost. You must pay yourself. Say it with me, everybody. I will pay myself a salary. It is important. It is mandatory. And if you don't think it is, get on a plane when you can, or think back as to the last time you were on a plane. When those oxygen masks come down, you are directed, you are told in no uncertain terms, take that oxygen for yourself first before you can help anybody else. When you are running a business, you must take your salary first before you can serve your customers genuinely and openly and honestly and with all of the passion and fervor that you have for your product and service, right? So overhead, marketing, salaries, subcontractors, bad debts, taxes, all of those things are going to go into your hard costs. Now, here's the fun part that you've been brainstorming about. You're going to add your value. So if you've got a one-of-a-kind product, maybe you're going to take this price that's come out of your hard cost, you're going to add 14% of it. Maybe you've got a limited offering on Christmas ornaments, you're going to add 73 cents to each Christmas ornament because it's a limited time or it's a one-of-a-kind or whatever the case might be. Maybe you've got a service specialty that nobody else offers. Maybe you are the only person that can train a racehorse to be a dressage horse. That is a big premium. You can charge 6 figures for that, I'm pretty sure, right? Your expertise, maybe you've just got a flat price that you're going to add for any one of the elements from your value, your specialty column, right? And when you think about this, this last box is really what you need to think about. Each value that you add is going to increase the price, either just a little bit, maybe a lot, maybe you're unsure, right? You must update your value at least annually. I review my service offerings every quarter. I don't always change them every quarter, but I do revisit them and have a look and say, does my value still match my price? When I'm a customer, is the value of what I'm offering worth more than the price I'm selling it for? That high perceived value is critical. You must increase your prices annually because every year you have more experience, you have more value, and you offer more expertise, whether you're selling a product or a service. And then, of course, your existing price always becomes your new minimum when you are transitioning customers, in the case of service, or when you are bringing in new customers, right? Because you're never going to go back to the price from 2018. You're always going to start at your 2021 price, and it's going to become your 2022 price, okay? So where are you going to go to next? You're going to review your price descriptions. You're going to brainstorm your client characteristics. You are going to create your value story, and then you're going to deliver your value out loud. How does it sound? Until it sounds comfortable and confident and natural, practice, 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 right? Let's talk about our takeaways. Let's do a quick recap on today. You're going to recognize your value. You're going to choose your customer. You're going to create your value story, and you're going to keep your price current. Now, in blue, your customer equals your value price, right? Super important. Your customer equals your value price. So as we transition here into the Q&A, I just want to say thank you, everyone. Lots of you on today's call. Thank you for investing your time in learning more about how to price your products and services. And here's what I would like to say to you. I would love to hear from each and every one of you to learn about your pricing journey. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. My email address is going to be on the next slide. I would love to listen to your value story and offer you any insights or different levels that you might be struggling with and help you with that. So with a few minutes left, I'm going to answer as many questions as possible. Jessica, thank you for joining me. I can see you smiling on screen, and I will turn it over to you if there's anything pressing that I should address in our last couple of minutes.
No, just a gentle reminder for anyone who hasn't typed in their question yet. If you want to go ahead and do that, we have only a few minutes left. Okay. So first question that just came in, Jennifer, how do you know if your price is current?
Well, you know that your price is current because it's your price today. So your price is current because it's your price today. Now, once you go through choosing your customer and creating your value price, that's going to become your new price, and that will become your current price. That might be tomorrow, right? You might be able to implement that next month. So whichever price you are currently selling your product and service is your current price, is your starting point.
Awesome. We have a question here in regards to startups. So how does the salary approach apply to startups? Sometimes they don't make profits for several years
before they become profitable. Okay, I can see the question there. So again, you must have a plan. A startup can have money. A startup may have seed money, a startup may have financial backing, and that salary comes out of there. If you are launching your business from scratch, you must determine what that is going to be. And again, that's going to factor into your price. So it is a little bit more complex than I can answer in today's session, but I would love to follow up with you afterwards. My email address is on screen. I'd love to hear from you and go from there.
Yeah, so, just a brief reminder, because we had a question come in. Yes, a recording will be shared with everyone via email. It'll also include a white paper that Jennifer has written and your CPD credit. So that will be shared within a week. Thank you.
Perfect. Do we have time for one more question, Jessica? Or are we out of, I think we got another minute.
I think we could do one more for sure.
Which one would you like me to tackle?
Your choice, Jennifer.
Okay. So can I develop a percentage markup versus profit margin? You absolutely can. Like if you know what your profit margin, if you want it to be, here's simple. 30% markup translates into a 23% profit margin. A 50% markup translates into a 27% or 30% profit margin. So again, you can Google that math or that calculation, but that's how you can make the conversion of markup versus margin. And actually, lastly, great question. How do you know if your price is too little or too high? If everybody says yes to your price, it's too low. If nobody says yes to your price, your value is not been described appropriately. So again, work on your value story to match those two things up. And thank you, Jessica, so much for the opportunity to share my pricing stories. I've really enjoyed today, and I look forward to hearing from many of you as to how your journey is going on. So thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or day.